whatsoever. And we finished off a round, so we'll go ahead and move all these to the very, very end, and we're going to tick this round marker up to number 2, and we'll start it off again with lane number 2. The baddie is initiative 6, and it is this goblin right here. So this baddie right now has equipment and mischief. Mischief's the only thing that triggers. It steals 2 active dice from the Gearloc that's beside it. And right now, Duster doesn't have anything. Doesn't have any defense. So nothing to steal. Did that on purpose. And I have 2 defense, or I should say 2 attack dice coming at Duster right now. The only downside is I don't have any defense. So these are going to go straight through to my HP. But I can use my buff HP in order to negate some of these hits. The downside is I kind of want to take them, but I can't take them as HP hits, even though I'd love to get Nightshade out there. I have to deplete my buff HP first, and then if I have less than full health or full HP under my Gearloc chip, which means less than 4, then I can get Nightshade out on a future end of round, which could be really cool to see. So we'll go ahead and roll our 2 attack dice and see what happens. So I'm very much hoping for a lot of bones here. I do not want to see Duster take too much damage. But at the same time, getting Nightshade out there might be good. I would need to have more than 2 damage. I need to get 3 damage on Duster in order to see Nightshade come out at the end of the round. So let's see what happens. Ha! Look at that, we got the 3 damage. So basically 3 damage goes straight through, 2 damage of my buff disappears, and then 1 comes from my HP off Duster. This means at the end of this second round, Nightshade will be making an appearance if I'm still at 1 HP under my max. So that'll be very interesting to see. We'll have Nightshade come in and be able to help us and all that good stuff. So we've resolved both of those dice, and we can move on to Duster's activation. Alright, so I've got a plan of attack here. What I'm going to do is use a lot of the skill dice from Duster. So Duster has 3 dexterity to use right now. I'm first off going to use a bottled smoke to try to see if I can successfully hide. Basically, I want to disappear off the map, again, letting another round go by to avoid the Krellen coming out too early, and basically also preparing myself to come out of the shadows in round 3 and just start hammering people, knowing that Nightshade will come into play at the end of this round because I'm 1 HP less than my full health. So what I can do, which is a really cool mechanic within Duster, is I have Promise of Prey and Ferocity, which are 2 dice that are specific to Nightshade, and you would think that you wouldn't be able to use these dice, which are these 2 right here, which are 14 and 15, that you wouldn't be able to roll them until Nightshade is on the battle mat, but you'd be mistaken. You can actually roll these dice even when Nightshade's not in play, because they go into a locked slot, and when they're sitting in the lock slot, they then can be used once Nightshade's out. I know Nightshade is coming, and if I'm going to hide in the shadows anyway, I might as well prepare and get Nightshade ready to go to town on these guys when he gets out there. Now, actually, I don't really know whether Nightshade is a male or female, but I'm just going to go with a he for now. We'll go with that. So basically, we're going to go ahead and roll all 3 of these. We're going to hope that I land the smoke bomb, because if I don't, I've just made a very big error. There's definitely a risk there of it not working out, but we'll have to just go with it and see what happens here, and I hope that it does pan out in my favor, because this is a pretty risky thing to do. The only other thing I could do is take out one of these 2 skill dice and grab a defense die and hope to get enough defense to block. That might not be a bad idea either, but I think I'm going to risk it. I think I'm going to risk it because getting a double bone would allow me to heal as well if I really needed to. So let's go for it. Let's risk it, see what happens. Here we go, hoping for that bottled smoke. That's the one I want the most. Here we go. Nice, I got it. Okay, oh, I didn't get the training point. So this one here, if I had landed on this side, the ferocity side, it would have given me a free training point, but I still get the double bone, which is nice. I do get the bottled smoke, thank goodness. There's only 3 sides of this dice that actually have, or die, that have that bottled smoke. The other 3 are bones, so I could have easily screwed that up too and been in big trouble. And this one here, a ×2 modifier, basically is going to allow me to get Nightshade to do Promise of Prey, and while Nightshade is on the battle mat, I can apply it to any baddie, and then on its turn, Nightshade may place itself adjacent to the baddie, and then this baddie takes ×2 the damage the next time it's attacked by Nightshade. So really it's just making Nightshade's attack, which is a normal roll of 2. He gets 2 movement points, or 2 decks to move essentially, and 2 attack dice to use typically. So it's just going to basically bolster that attack. So let's go ahead and lock these things in. Of course, this one will go in the backup plan. Let's head over to Duster's playmat, get these things all situated, and then resolve the fact that I just disappeared into a cloud of smoke. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and lock this one into the lock slot up here. This is a bone, so it's gonna basically go 1 and 2, and it'll sit like this. That's what you do when you get a double bone. You basically just kind of forget the one here. It is here, but you just kind of make a space for it and go up to the second slot. So the next bone I get will land here. Again, I could use gadget armor right now if I wanted to heal myself 1 HP, but I really want Nightshade out there. I could also use these to move positions later on or deal damage to any unit. So again, these bones are going to come in real handy going into the third round when I want to just clear guys straight off the mat, and I'll be able to go after those chimps, for instance, or that chimp that I can't hit with attack dice, which will be really cool. So that resolves those. Let's head to the battle mat, and I'm going to go ahead and put an untargetable effect die on Duster as well, because she has just vanished into the shadows. So after a successful use of bottled smoke, I am now untargetable. So I got that effect die on top of Duster. That's fantastic. Now this die has been used and will be exhausted, placed off to the left of Duster's playmat, and we've resolved Duster's turn fully. I'm choosing not to do anything with my backup plans for now because I'm in the shadows and safe all the way around to my next turn. So we'll go ahead now. We're going to activate Gasket. So moving along to Gasket, we'll just move Gasket up the initiative meter. We really want to try to bolster Gasket's defenses. Now Gasket currently has in the active slot 1, 2 defense die. I'd like to try to fill those active slots, so it makes sense to probably roll 2 more defensive dice with Gasket, as well as I have to roll the Hydro Valve, so that's going to take up 3 decks right there. The only thing left remaining that I could do is potentially roll another defense in case I happen to get some bones, or I could potentially look at trying to make an attack against, say for instance, the primate, which I know that I won't actually injure because the defense there that will block it, but at least maybe I can get rid of some of that 2 defense. So maybe I'll go ahead and roll 1 attack die along with it. So we're going to roll 1 attack, 2 defense, and the Hydro Valve for a total of 4 decks, and we're going to target the primate. So here's hoping Gasket's roll pans out pretty well as we make a little attack against the primate and try to bolster defenses. All right, so we got ourselves a bone. We got a 2 for defense, which isn't bad. We're going to spend 1 hydro, and we did do 1 damage to the primate. So let's resolve all of those right now. So first off, on the Hydro side of things, the Hydro Valve rolled 1, so we're going to have to deplete one of our canisters down by 1. That will resolve this die. And now we're going to slot a bone into our backup plan. And now we're going to slot in the 1 bone we rolled from our defense die into the backup plan in the first slot. We also got 2 defense on one of the dies. We'll slot that into an active slot. And now we're going to resolve the 1 attack against the baddie that we chose to target, which is the primate. Gasket was able to do 1 damage to the primate, so we're going to go ahead and reduce the shield on this primate down by 1. This die has now been resolved, and Gasket's turn is over, unless we decide to use any loot, but we all know that loot can only be used on Gasket in order to charge up the power converter for healing later, and I don't really need to do that right now because we still have all of our buff HP as well as a backup in addition to the 3 health that we still have underneath Gasket. So let's move on to the next baddie in the initiative meter. The next baddie in line is going to be the blue baddie, and this one right here, the one we actually just hit, the primate, is going to be activating its ability on it, states Trap, which has no effect whatsoever on a water-based battle map, but the Blind Strike 1 is going to go into effect, and it says before moving this unit, it deals a number of damage to the strongest adjacent unit. So in this case, the only adjacent unit to this baddie is Gasket, so Gasket will be hit for 1 damage. This damage damage is not true damage, so we can actually use that 2 defense die that we actually received in the last roll, and we can knock this down to 1 to negate that hit, which is nice and useful. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the chip itself, which states we roll 3 attack dice and 1 defense die. Now the only thing with this is we already have a defense die on the baddie chip, so we do not roll the defense die again as it's already on the chip. We will just be rolling the 3 attack dice. We of course have to determine what the target is, but this one has an easy target, being that it's already adjacent to Gasket. So Gasket will be the target. We're going to grab 3 attack dice, roll them, and hopefully we see some bones. So here's hoping that this attack does not hit Gasket too hard, because 3 attack dice is nothing to laugh at. This could be pretty dangerous, but Gasket does have 3 active defense. So here's hoping. All right, that worked out pretty good. We got a 2 attack that's coming at us, so I'm going to go ahead and exhaust this, or not exhaust, but basically negate that damage with the 2 defense die that I have on Gasket, leaving me with just 1 defense left over, so that's perfect. And a bone was rolled, so nothing happens and nothing's triggered on the baddie that way. So we were able to survive that attack, and that is the nastiest attack out there, so it looks like we're doing pretty good. We'll head on to the next baddie in the initiative meter. The next baddie in the initiative meter is going to be the yellow baddie, which is this one right here, the chimp, and its target is going to also be Gasket. Gasket is taking all of the heat right now. This ability says blind strike 1, which we know if there is an adjacent enemy next to it or Gearloc, it's going to strike it for 1 damage. I do have 1 leftover defense die on Gasket, which I will use to negate that damage. So literally just enough to block all of the hits there coming towards him so far. And at this particular point, we are going to roll an attack die, because this particular chimp rolls 1 attack die against a target, and this target in this case will still be Gasket. So let's roll this die and really hope for bones, because this will actually get past Gasket's defenses for the first time. Wish Gasket luck, because he's going to need it. He's got no defense, so we're really hoping to not see the 2 attack hit here. That would be bad. Okay, good. It's just a 1, so it's not too bad. Now, this is going to be the very first time that Gasket receives damage that he cannot defend against, and in this particular case, because he has buff HP, and he has a total of 5 buff HP, which is sitting in his prep area, he will simply lose 1 of that buff HP, and doesn't take any hits from his actual HP underneath his Gearloc chip, which is great. And finally, we come down to the last baddie to activate a monkey at the very top of our raft. So first off, the untargetable die that's on him will come off, and we are now able to target it again. It does have 1 defense die already on it, and we are supposed to roll when it's targeting its target, which will be Gasket again, being that it's adjacent, is 1 attack die and 1 defense die, but the defense die is already on it. So it's just going to be 1 attack die coming at Gasket, and if a bone is rolled again, the monkey will basically go into hiding again for another round, keeping us from trying to take it down. Now, strategy wise, guys, my real goal here was to try to get through the first 2 rounds without bringing that Krellen that's sitting in the baddie queue into play, and I've done a pretty good job so far of whittling down the opponents to a place where I think I can start hitting them for multiple damage going into the 3rd round. My hope is that when I bring Nightshade into the 3rd round, because Duster is not at full HP, I will then have 3 different units that I'm able to attack with, and hopefully between the 3 of them I might be able to wipe out 2, or hopefully if I'm really lucky, 3 baddies off the mat, and really get myself into a good space to try to outlast that Krellen until the 6th round, when we can actually start hitting it for damage. But for now, we're going to go ahead and resolve that last baddie, and it's 1 attack die against Gasket. Here's hoping this is not bad. Oh, we got a bone. That's perfect. But the bad thing is, guys, is first off, no damage going towards Gasket. But again, the untargetable die will be going back on top of the monkey, and we aren't able to actually take it down in the next round. So that's a little unfortunate, because I was hoping to knock that one out, but it's going to go into hiding for another round. So the monkey is going to become untargetable. So again, another die added on top of that particular chip to note that, just like Duster is currently in hiding. And we're going to go ahead here and we're going to move the round marker to round number 3, reset our initiative meter, and we're also going to do some in-between cleanup between rounds, which is going to involve getting Nightshade into the battle mat. Now this is really cool because this is the first time I've been able to bring Nightshade into a battle. So let's talk about the fact of where Nightshade comes from and how Nightshade is actually used. So first off, Duster and Nightshade are best friends. And as Duster's companion, Nightshade is treated as an ally, so can be targeted by baddies, but doesn't count as an actual Gearloc. Now, it is considered a melee unit, so when Nightshade comes into the battle mat here, it will be a melee unit, meaning that it must start in a Gearloc melee starting position, and it has its own turn during battle, of course, because it'll be using its own initiative die. And Nightshade starts the adventure with 2 HP, which I've already got slotted underneath the chip in the prep area, and 2 attack dice when it makes attacks. It can also move 2 positions each turn, and of course we have skill tree inside of Duster's skill matrix that can further enhance the different things that Nightshade can do. If Duster has full HP before going into a battle and basically before the battle phase begins as a result of an encounter, Nightshade does not start in the battle mat. And we saw that during this. We essentially set up for an encounter. Duster had full health from the start, so no Nightshade out of the gate. However, there is a strategy to going into a battle with lower than full HP on Duster so that Nightshade can come in on the battle mat right away. The only negative to that is Nightshade's initiative die has 6s and 3s, and there's a chance you could potentially end up rolling, and when you bring Nightshade in at the very beginning of a battle, you could end up rolling a 3, putting Nightshade much further back on the initiative track. The bonus to not bringing Nightshade in at the very beginning of a battle is that if you bring him in after Duster has taken some damage, at the end of the round, if at the end of any round during battle, if Duster has less than full HP, then the initiative die for Nightshade is set to 6 and placed in the initiative meter at the very top. And that's the strategic advantage to allowing Nightshade to come in to the rescue after the battle has started. So we are going into a brand new round, round number 3. So we have Nightshade's initiative die. It's going to be slotted in right at the very beginning, which is going to be extremely useful, especially going into a round when I want to start taking out baddies. So just before we officially place Nightshade on the battle mat in a melee position, I'll just place Nightshade right here for now. We're going to talk quickly about when things go south with our friendly wolf. So if Nightshade is defeated at the end of battle, place the wolf back in the prep area on Duster with 1 HP. Nightshade will never be unavailable for a battle, but it relies heavily on using flint and tinder or rest and recover for regaining HP. Now the good news is I picked up flint and tinder as a skill die on Duster, so we have the availability to not only rest and recover and heal up Nightshade, but also potentially use flint and tinder on Nightshade. And I did that on purpose, knowing how valuable Nightshade is going to be for us. Now, another thing that's really important to note is that when choosing rest and recover during the recovery phase as one of the 2 ways I could potentially heal Nightshade, I can only choose to heal either Duster or Nightshade, not both. So when I rest and recover, I can't split up the HP. I can't somehow restore both of them back to full health. I have to choose which one I want to heal, and that's the reason why flint and tinder is so useful as a skill die to roll during that recovery phase. Alright, so what I've done here is I've moved a die on top of another die so you can more easily see the initiative meter, because we want to make sure we understand that Nightshade is going first. We don't want to forget that, and I want you guys to be able to see that. So first off, I put a die on top of a die. For now, we'll put that back down later. We need to figure out the placement of Nightshade now, as Nightshade is officially entering the battle mat at the start of round 3 here. And on top of it, we also have to go ahead and activate Nightshade first. So we have one of 3 positions currently we can put Nightshade in, based on this ally being a melee ally, essentially. So we have this spot here, this one here, and the one currently resides in. Now this one over here is probably not the best because he's up against the strongest baddie. So we're going to run him away from that. I'm going to probably put him somewhere where he can likely do some damage quickly. Now, The initiative meter matters quite a bit here because who goes first does actually have an impact. Now we know after I go ahead with Nightshade, I get to go first and it'll hopefully be an attack that does some damage. So maybe I'll be able to take out a baddie if I position Nightshade in a logical situation. Next up would be the purple baddie who currently can't target Duster. So basically it would try to move and go after somebody else. So the risk here is if I put Nightshade on either side over here with only 2 health, someone rolling 2 attack dice could very well take out Nightshade pretty fast. So we're running into a little bit of an issue here where I have to decide where I want to make my attack. Now, the other thing I could try to do to negate a risk is I could try placing Nightshade right here and basically go for a Hail Mary and try to take out this goblin one here, the one that's the most likely to take Nightshade out and knock it off the map, knowing that this one's so far away it would take a while to get there and is focused on Gasket already. Duster will be untargetable until Duster activates, so that's another thing to keep note of. Lots going on here for sure, lots of different things, and none of these 3 positions are technically wrong, but it's interesting trying to figure out which one's which, and I'm going to probably go for the gamble that has us throwing 2 attack dice against this goblin right here. So we're going to be going for an actual kill here. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate Nightshade right now, and we're going to go ahead and do some dice rolling and attack and hopefully see if we can land something wonderful. Alright, so Nightshade has leaped onto the raft and is going to go right after the goblin, and we're going to roll 2 attack dice hoping to take it down in one foul swoop, which would be amazing. Here we go. We got it. 3 damage. That's way more than enough to take that goblin down. We have removed the first baddie of this particular battle. So the goblin has been completely knocked out, which is awesome. So it won't even get a chance to activate, which is great because now we're going to be able to remove that die from this initiative meter, meaning that the next individual to go will be Duster, and then we're going to have Gasket go afterwards. So that worked perfectly to have us go with all of our heroes first before the enemies even have a chance to go. Of course, we'll take the lane marker as well out of the picture and place it above, because we know that when the Krellen enters the battle at the very beginning of the next round, or basically the end of this round, we are going to be using that lane 2 marker. Alright, so now it is Duster's turn, so we'll activate Duster on the initiative meter. The first thing that happens, of course, my untargetable die is gone now, so I can be targeted by other baddies going forward, which is sad. I'm back on the mat again. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to likely move over and take out the chimp, the one that's really, really weak. And you might be wondering why I'm going to do that, and then I should be focusing on this monstrosity over here, but don't worry, I am, and I do have a plan here. So what I'm going to do is on Duster's turn, I can use a die which is set in my locked area that I rolled way earlier. And this particular die is the one that has to do with Nightshade being on the battle mat now. And it says Promise of Prey. While Nightshade is on the battle mat, apply to any baddie, and on its turn, Nightshade may place itself adjacent to this baddie. This baddie then takes 2 times the damage the next time it's attacked by Nightshade. So I'm going to apply the Promise of Prey to this gigantic baddie right here to have a better shot at doing big damage next time. So my plan, like in terms of how I'm going to orchestrate this, is I really want Duster to basically spend a dex to come over here, and now my target is going to be acquired right here. I only need to hit 1 HP worth of damage. I still have 2 dex to spend, so I'll roll 2 of my attack dice and really just hope to take it out. Now if I can do this, I've wiped half the baddies off the mat, and I've set myself up to be able to have Nightshade in the next round jump over here, and I'll likely place him right here, and then I'll probably have Duster come back on this side, and we're going to hammer this large primate into the ground if we can do it, and Gasket, of course, is basically just going to continue to tank and shield up. So at this point, let's go to the dice tray. We're going to roll 2 attack dice as we target the chimp. So this should be pretty straightforward. We just need 1 hit. That's all we need. Oh, just barely. We got a bone though, so that's good. I can put that into my backup plan now for Duster. Now has 3 bones to spend. And don't worry guys, I have not forgotten about the gadget armor. There's a reason I'm holding off on not spending them just yet. If I can get lucky, depending on how the rest of this goes and the fact we have to stretch it all the way to the 6th round in order to fight that Krellen that's pulling our raft down the river, if I can get really lucky and roll some more bones along the way, I might be able able to have Duster's chip flip over to the innate +1 side if I can get 6 bones. Now, there might be a situation that calls for me to start using the gadget armor to heal, or to heal myself, Duster, or to move a position or deal damage, but for now I'm holding on to them and being a little bit stingy. So let's apply that 1 damage to the chimp. It is long gone. Let's get it off the battle mat. Well done, Duster. You and Nightshade have done your job this particular round. We have taken out another baddie, which will be discarded. That is fantastic news. And we'll go ahead and take that lane marker and place it back up at the top, as well as remove the initiative die out of the meter because it will not be activating during this turn. At this particular point, the only other things I could do is potentially use gadget armor to try to move into a different area. So that's quite an interesting thought, actually, is do I want to spend gadget armor rather than try to go for that innate +1 to be in a more advantageous position? I'm going to hold off because I still think with 3 decks I can make 1, 2, and then I can do 1 attack there. It should be okay. Ooh, that could be risky. I'm going to also attempt to... that's actually interesting. I'd really like to, in the next one too, is use Blade Dip. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but that'll cost me a dex. So yeah, the whole idea of maybe adding dex to Duster might be a good idea in the future here. I can see how that can be useful in this situation. Let me think about that as to whether or not I want to go ahead and use any of my backup plan before we move on to Gasket. Now, this is one thing I'd really like to stress to you guys. It might seem like even if you have 3 or 4 bones, that you can go ahead and activate your backup plan as many times as you want, as long as you have the bones to do it. But actually, the rules state you can only activate your backup plan once per turn. So even if I wanted to use my gadget armor to help me move, I could at most spend 1 bone to move 1 position. At the end of the day, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hold on to my bones and see if I can use this to my advantage later on. Let's head over to Gasket, who is going to activate next. All right, so with Gasket here, we've got not too many options just yet. I really want to start flushing out the skills area for him later on, but as of right now, Cut is not really going to do what I want it to do. I mean, yes, I could make an attack on just one of the baddies, but I'd rather actually just shield up. I have absolutely no shields whatsoever, so I think it makes sense to go ahead and grab 3 defense dice, and we're going to roll to try to put up some defense for Gasket, as Gasket is going to be the primary target of all the baddies' attention, being that he's jammed right up adjacent to each of them. So I have to roll that Hydro die again. Cut might be something worthwhile maybe when the Krellen comes out, if I can somehow line them up so that I can hit 2 baddies at once in a row. That's where Cut is really cool. It can bleed, and it costs Hydro to spend, but it can be really useful. But other than that, I don't have too many other abilities for Gasket, but I do have a high attack value if I want to turn around and start hammering on somebody at some point, which I will if I can get my defenses up. So let's do this roll and see if we can get some defenses up on Gasket. All right, here we go. Hoping for good things. Okay, that's not too bad. We got ourselves a bone, 1 defense, and a 2 defense. So that's enough defense to stop something nasty. We have to spend a Hydro, so we'll go ahead to our player mat here for Gasket and slot these in. All right, so we have ourselves another bone going into the backup plan, which we could potentially use if we wanted to. We could do a hot fix. A hot fix allows us to take one of our dice in the active area here, one of our defense dice basically, and take it up to the next level. So we can basically take a 1 and turn it into a 2, which would be kind of handy, tempting to do, but to be totally honest, with the amount of buff HP that I have on him and how well we're doing, I'm not going to spend those bones right now. Again, I'm going to try to see if I can just keep rolling lots of dice, and maybe I can get my innate abilities on these guys done up in this round. Now, the other thing we don't want to forget about is consuming the Hydro that it costs to, well, basically this Hydro valve, essentially the best way to think of this thematically is basically like he's leaking Hydro, essentially, and every once in a while he'll land a bone on that. Whenever you land a bone on it, you don't actually slot the die in here because you have to roll this every time you roll dice, but you just basically take any other die that's attack or defense and fill it in. We haven't hit that yet though, so another one is going to drop his canister, his first one, from 3 down to 2. So we've been holding on to the reserves of our Hydro pretty good. We got 7 in total still. This has been resolved. Go back to the prep area for now, and we are done. Gasket's turn. On to the next baddie in line. So the blue baddie will activate now, and that's going to be a result of no defense dice roll because we have 1 on him, 3 attack dice, but just before we do that, the blind strike is going to hit. It'll go up against Gasket, and Gasket's going to block it with 1 of the defense die that it just got, thank goodness. And now we're going to have a wonderful total of 3 attack dice coming at Gasket with only 2 defense to block it, so we're really hoping for some serious bones on this one. All right, so 3 attack dice. This should be quite fun. Okay, that's actually really good. Only 2. It's perfect. Gasket can block both of those, and the bone does nothing for the baddie. So that is completely resolved, and now Gasket has absolutely no defenses up. Only buff HP at this point. And last but not least is our monkey in the back. So the untargetable die comes off of him, and it's going to attack. It already has a defense die, so we won't roll that. It's only 1 attack going against Gasket, so hopefully this is not too bad. Now, the one thing I'm really hoping that doesn't happen here again is another bone, because this thing keeps hiding and I really want to just take it out. So let's hope that this does not happen again. Good, finally. Okay, so yes, there will be a damage that will get through, and I don't have the defenses to block it, so it will be 1 of the buff HP coming off of Gasket. So just so you guys are aware how much is left, we currently have 3 buff HP left to take damage from Gasket before it starts coming off of the HP under the chip. But remember, we can always discard a loot to power up the power converter and heal ourselves from our regular HP, not the buff HP, if we get into a really sticky situation. So just like that, we're starting a brand new round. So we'll go ahead and cycle all of our Gearlocs and baddies down to the end. We're going to rotate this thing to round number 4. Now things get interesting when we hit round number 5. A couple of the rules of the battle mat will change. I'll talk about those when we hit round 5. For now, we're just in 4. Not too much changing, but the biggest thing, guys, is at the end of the last round, at the end of round 3, which is essentially the beginning of round 4, basically, you're supposed to start bringing in those baddies from the queue that you have, if you have any that you've set aside that weren't able to fill a lane from the beginning of the game, or if they just accumulated through use of signal or some other horrific ability that allows more baddies to enter the map. So in this case right now, we know we have a Krellen coming in, and this is the Krellen that's been dragging a raft down the river as we've been fighting these guys all off. So at this point in time, we have the Krellen coming in. The only fun part is we cannot actually attack it at all while it is in any round except for 6 and above, or the fatigue round and above. So at this point in time, we'll reveal the baddie. We're going to bring it in on the first available lane, which will be lane number 2. So we're going to go ahead and grab the chip for the lane and the initiative die. We're going to flip this Krellen over and see what we got. We are going up against a Krellen Water Wraith. So this is the individual responsible for pulling us down the raft at 2 times the speed that we're used to. And this thing can poison. Now there's something that's actually really cool, and normally it wouldn't be. Poison is not good. It just basically continues to poison you and hit you every single time you start your turn. But the great news is I have a water mask on Duster, and Duster cannot be is immune to poison during water battles. So I'm not going to be able to take poison. So Duster is going to be, she's going to really want to be the one going after this guy or drawing its attention, as well as maybe Gasket, because he can tank essentially. But either way, we're in a good position. This particular baddie will not be entering the battle mat on the raft. This is where the new rules for Undertow get interesting. When a new baddie comes in, when it is a Krellen, we're supposed to roll a d6 and determine where it is placed on the outer sides of the raft. So you've probably been wondering the whole time, what are these spaces on the sides of the raft? We've never used them. This is the time they become useful. So the Krellen, when they enter in, will land in either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, and it's all hinging on this d6 roll. So let's go ahead and roll it and find out where this Krellen's going to pop in. 6. Look at that. It's going to end up right beside Nightshade. So let's go ahead here and place the lane marker underneath. Now, how this works essentially is if it's available, if the slot is open, which this one is, then the baddie just goes right into that slot. If the position is occupied, then you just choose the next number up in sequence. So of course, because we're at 6, the next number up would essentially go around back to 1 again. So it would actually pop up on the opposite side of the raft. So again, in certain encounters or battles, you're going to have many Krellen coming up, and you're going to have times where some of them spawn on top of each other. So if that is happening, then you're just going to increase the number that you rolled, or rotate 6 through to 1 and then back 1 through 6 again, in order to find an available slot for them to come in. So taking a close look at the baddie here, you can see it's 3 green, and that is definitely going to place it at the very end of the initiative meter, but that's not actually how you determine the initiative for anybody entering the battle after round 2. That's right, things change. So after round 2, if you have anyone entering the battle mat that wasn't in there before, there's a different set of rules. All 1-point baddies, 5-point baddies, 3-point Krellens, and 3-point mech baddies always enter the battle mat at the bottom spot of the initiative meter. So the reason that I mention this is because in this case, it just appears like I'm setting the initiative to 3 as it is on the chip, and of course it would end up at the end. But if this actual Krellen had an initiative on it of 5, it wouldn't matter. It would still come in at the very back end of the initiative meter. Now, all Gearlocs, Tyrants, and 20-point baddies that come in round 2 or later will actually all be at the top spot of the initiative meter. So you can see how there's a very big difference there between the two sets. Some come in at the bottom, some come in at the top. The rulebook breaks that down nicely, but hopefully I've explained it for you here. It's something to definitely keep an eye on when adding individuals to the battle mat. All right, so here we go. We're starting it off with Nightshade at the very, very top of things. So Nightshade had the Promise of Prey, which was placed by Duster, and this particular thing triggers right now. And this is going to be really, really cool. So basically what's going to happen is Nightshade is going to place itself adjacent to the baddie. So I can choose to have it on this side or this side. And I'd rather, actually, now that I think about it, this particular individual will go after the weaker, so it'd be better for me to have Nightshade here. It's safer. If I put Nightshade back here, this individual between the two being equal distance will go after Nightshade. I don't want that, so I'm gonna have Nightshade show up over here, and that way I can hopefully keep Nightshade in the picture a little longer than expected. And I'm going to be able to double my damage when I make an attack, which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to be rolling 2 attack dice, and I get to double that thanks to Promise of Prey, and hopefully this works out for me. All right, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous about this roll because that'll be a nice die to lose and not get the benefit of if I roll bones here. So no bones, please. I do not want to see bones. Oh, that was awesome. So I got, oh my gosh, I think I got enough to actually take it down. I think I just killed it. That's incredible. Okay, so I got a 2, a 1. It has 5 health, I believe. Let me just double check here. Oh no, it has 6 health. I'm 1 away, but that's still really good. It has 6 health plus it has a shield, and I landed it for 6. So there will be 1. Oh, that shield saved it, but still, what an incredible hit by Nightshade. Wow, what a fantastic hit. So again, ×2 the result of what we're seeing here. So we're going to be going up to 6 damage, and we'll take 1 away from the active defense it has, bring it down to 5 damage getting through, which is going to knock its huge stack all the way down to 1. What a massive hit. Now the cool thing is that Gasket is ready to go, and maybe I can make an attack with Gasket to finish this one off. That was perfect. That worked out flawlessly, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move over to Duster. All right, Duster, so what are you going to do here? Now, the first thing I want to clarify, guys, is I keep saying that we can't attack this particular Krellen, but what I really mean to say is we can't even target it. So I can't target it with anything. I can't use some effect die that, hits it for poison and hopefully bleed it out and stuff like that. I can't actually target it, and that's part of the actual Gearloc turn, essentially, or ally turn, is really picking a target and then going after it. So it's untargetable, essentially, and really the best thing to do here, which would have probably been a little bit easier, is you might as well just go ahead. This is not the official way to do it, but this is a good way to remind ourselves we just can't do anything with this guy. So I'm just going to put that there. Once round 6 comes around, we'll be able to actually target it, and probably should have done that the second it came out. It's just an easier way to remind ourselves. But again, this is more of an encounter rather than a condition that was given. So I'm just putting that there for visual representation that this thing is hiding. But essentially, these Krellen are going to pop around the raft all over the place. It's going to try on its turn to attack one of these 2 spaces, and we're not there yet, but it will eventually try. And if no one is there, it's going to then move to the next numeric value up and try to attack again. If there is nobody in 1, for instance, which would be the next spot it would move, it would try to attack these 2 positions wherever there's a Gearloc or ally to hit. If there's nothing there, then it basically tries to actually hurt the raft, which is a whole other thing that has to do with wreckage. And when wreckage happens to a raft, if enough wreckage builds up, you can actually lose the encounter, which I mentioned way earlier on. We'll talk more about it once we actually get to it. We'll see that likely happen here at the end of this, based on how I'm probably strategizing this whole thing out. Duster is going to probably probably head over here and we're gonna go after this monkey now that it's not untargetable. And I'm gonna spend first a backup plan bone. I'm gonna spend 1 bone in order to, and this, I can only do 1 spend of a backup plan in order to allow me to move 1 dex. This makes me a little bit more useful because now that movement was free, and so this movement will cost a dex, and I still have 2 dex to roll going into this attack. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually, knowing that it's going to activate after me, I'm going to blade dip and I'm going to attack, I think. Do I really want to do that? Trying to just debate. No, I'll just do 2 attack dice. I'll hold on to the blade dip. We might be able to blade dip this thing, which would be a lot more fun. So I'll just do 2 regular attack dice. We'll try to see how much damage we can get onto this monkey. We actually have a chance to kill it if we land 2 2s, but the chances of that happening are super thin. All right, Duster, let's see what you got. Hopefully this pans out well. Oh my gosh. We almost got it. So close, so close. I wish I could use anything to take it down, but I can't. So that's the best I can do. 3 is still really good, knocks it down to 1 damage, so it will still be alive, sadly. But you know what? It's not as bad as it could have been. I could have rolled a whole bunch of, actually, it's got a bunch of bones, wouldn't have been a bad thing here. But we'll go ahead to the battle mat here and take some health off this monkey. So 3 damage is going after this thing, and we're going to go ahead and remove the 1 defense that it has. It will take 2 damage, bring it down to a single chip of health. So we have 2 baddies still in play, which is 1 health each. They will not be lasting longer than the next round. We should be able to take them out, but hopefully the monkey does not become untargetable on its turn. That would be really annoying and cause us to have to wait to take it out. For now, I'm just doing my best to stay as far away from the Krellen as possible so that it can't hit me. But of course, if it can't hit me, like I said, it'll hit the raft. But we're finished Duster's turn. I'm happy with what happened there. So we're going to move on to Gasket. Now Gasket actually has the opportunity to not only shield up, but could likely target one of these guys and take him down. So we might as well be going after the one that's going to hurt us the most. So let's go ahead and try to hit this primate. So first off, we'll take these dice out of the equation. We'll take a look at Gasket's player mat here to see what we have set up so far, and then we'll choose the dice we'd like to roll. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing actually to go ahead and have Gasket defense up, because the thing is right now where he currently stands, he actually is adjacent to the monkey. The monkey will go ahead and attack either, and we actually are equal in terms of HP right now. And I'm not talking about buff HP, but more so who the monkey will target on its activation. Duster and Gasket are beside it, and they're both equal, so I can choose. So I'd rather roll some defense dice right now, not only to get some extra bones, but maybe to get some defense so I can block that attack and choose Gasket to take it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll roll 2 defense dice and maybe 2 attack dice, because we only need 1 hit to get through in order to kill something. It's a little risky because I could end up missing it, and that would be kind of funny and sad at the same time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try to hit the primate to the left of Gasket, the one that rolls 3 attack dice, because that is the most annoying one by far. So hold your breath, because it's a little risky that I'm going after defense when I probably should be going after attack. Now that I think about it, it might be worth my while to... No, I'm gonna stick with this. I'm gonna stick with my gut. We're gonna continue on. All right, so a correction, I have 4 decks to spend for rolling dice, but remember, I always have to roll my hydro valve. So before I make that critical error, I'm going to go ahead here and remove one of my defense dice. That's right, because I have to always roll that hydro valve when rolling dice. Don't want to forget that. Glad I caught that before I rolled. Okay, here we go. Nice, awesome. Oh, fantastic. That actually worked out really good. So I got 2 bones, but I don't have any defense. So now my bones are going to be up to 4, which is pretty solid, but I got the hits that I needed, so this actually worked out quite well, besides the fact I have no defense. But other than that, things are going swimmingly. So I'm going to slot in my bone, and like I said before with the hydro valve, you slot it in, but essentially you need it because you need to keep rolling for it, so just grab another die and slot it in. You can see, guys, I'm 2 bones away from going up to an 8+1, and I really want to do that. That's going to be one of my goals, is to try to get enough bones to flip this to an 8+1, because that would be so cool to have that going forward. It would be a real big benefit. So here's hoping we can really use this whole idea that we have to wait until the 6th round to take the Krellen out to really help us get those innate abilities. And now we're going to go back to the battle mat, resolve our 2 hits against the primate, and take that thing off the battle mat. It is no longer welcome on our raft. So Gasket landed 2 successful hits against the primate with no defense, able to block it. So boom, we've lost another baddie off the raft, which is fantastic. And another one goes down, taking off all the chips there. The great thing is the next one to go would have been the blue one, but not so much anymore. So it has been removed, and next in order will be green, which is the monkey just to the north of Gasket. All right, so now the monkey is going. Now, this is one thing that I might have slipped up on. I didn't actually make any mistakes in terms of who the monkey attacked because at all times the monkey was going after the weakest opponent. But basically, the monkey is a ranged baddie, the only one that's actually out there on the map right now at all. And so what I was doing was I was always having it basically dealing with Gasket all the time, which is fine because Gasket was the weakest Gearloc on the mat, so it was going to be the one targeted. But we have to remember now that Nightshade is on the map. Nightshade's actually the weakest, ally or Gearloc on the mat. So technically, based on range, this monkey is going to target Nightshade, even though Nightshade is nowhere near this monkey. So that's one of the downsides of range characters and Nightshade, apparently, because Nightshade can come in with low HP and become one of the big targets. And the reason we know that is because range baddies always follow their target. That's shown right on there, and you can see that the hands are down, they're not flexing, so it's going to go after the weakest Gearloc or ally. So in this case, it's targeting poor Nightshade. So we're going to go ahead and make a roll here. It's going to be an attack die, but also a defense die to bolster the monkey. So I wanted to mention that because I didn't make a mistake in terms of how I played it, but I don't want there to be any confusion in terms of how a ranged baddie operates. Remember, ranged baddies always use what's inside that target, whereas melee baddies only use what's inside that target. And when I'm saying target, I mean on the chip there. Only when the distance is equal between multiple choices, essentially. And we need to determine which one's going to be the target. But ranged-wise, everyone's a target, and he just goes after whatever he says, strongest or weakest. So now that we got that squared away and everything is fine anyway, we're going to go ahead and take a pot shot at Nightshade, sadly. All right, so the monkey's back. He's taking a shot at Nightshade, and I'm really hoping that I can handle this. Better not be 2. Please don't be 2. Oh, no, we lost Nightshade. No. Oh, that's the worst. And I got a bone. Oh, no, and a bone. That's like the worst combination ever. So not only can we not kill the monkey, it's going to go into hiding again for the 3rd time. Like, out of 4 rounds, we've had this thing hiding us 3 times. The chance of that actually happening are crazy, because most of the time we were just rolling 1 die, but like, still, this is getting a little ridiculous. And poor Nightshade just took all the damage there, so you can kiss Nightshade goodbye. Well, things were going our way until this monkey decided to start monkeying around and literally took Nightshade out without any issue whatsoever. It's kind of funny that Nightshade came in and did such a massive, powerful attack against one of the biggest baddies, and then this other monkey that's literally tiny just pops in and out every once in a while, causes some mayhem, and then disappears into the trees. So thematically, my assumption is he's jumping on the raft, he's messing with us, and then he's like jumping off to shore and then jumping back onto, using vines to basically get back to the raft and stuff, because he's just fooling around with us at this point, basically making fun of us. So he's gone untargetable again, and we're going to go ahead and resolve that bone for that roll. And then, of course, the 2 damage goes straight through a Nightshade. Nightshade is out of here. We got to remember, though, when we get to after the battle, at the very end of battle, we remember that we're going to be putting 1 HP underneath of Nightshade into Duster's prep area. So Nightshade will always have at least 1 to be prepared for the upcoming battle. It always has something in case you don't have the ability to heal. It always is able to go into the next battle, essentially. So I'm just going to put the 1 HP underneath of him right now in the prep area. We know for this particular battle, he's gone. So we're also going to take that initiative die and remove it out as well. So that's 1 less individual we get to use. The monkey is now done, but we still have the new Krellen involved here. And so the Krellen is going to go ahead and activate. So the Krellen now is going to activate, and it's going to look for any targets that it can potentially hit here, and there is none. So it is then going to move to the next numeric value up, which would have to be wrapping around to 1. So it's going to come all the way around to the opposite side of the raft and pop up over here. So the next time it activates, it'll move to 2 over here. But it's here now, and then it tries to attack again. And if it cannot find any baddie to attack, it then attacks the raft itself. So now we're going to go ahead and roll the number of attack dice on the Krellen, which is 1, and it's going to roll this die, and if it lands anything that results in at least a single point of damage, which is very likely because 5 sides of this die are success, or at least 1 damage or more, only a bone. A bone is the only thing that can save us. If it lands a bone, no wreckage is placed. If 1 damage at least is rolled, then a wreckage chip is placed. If there are ever 5 wreckage chips on the raft while we're doing one of these water encounter or water-based encounters, we automatically lose the encounter. So that was the reason, which makes probably more sense now, as to why I didn't wipe out all the baddies from the get-go and I delayed things to get him out last. If I had got him into play in round 1, I would have had to always have a Gearloc busy being in position wherever he happens to jump to in order to avoid the raft being hit. So it would have just caused way too much turmoil. So there's definitely strategy there in trying to keep yourselves afloat. So we're going to go ahead and roll this attack die here. If we land a success, 1 wreckage chip is applied. And that is a success, so we are going to have a good chunk of our raft get destroyed by this Krellen. So the Krellen has successfully wrecked the raft, so I'm going to place the wreckage token just right here, and essentially if we get 5 of those, we lose the encounter. Another thing to note, guys, is that if a Gearloc wants to move into a space with wreckage, it can, but it costs an extra dex, unless, of course, you have a really cool card like Duster does called Water Mask, which says it only requires 1 dex to move into wreckage locations or wreckage positions, which is fantastic, which just makes thematic sense. So we have a Water Mask, we can kind of get into the water and not take that extra dex worth for movement. So one of the biggest things to note with this, guys, is that the Krellen basically is targeting either of these positions. I can choose where to place the wreckage ship. Eventually they get cluttered up because you can see every single place that this particular Krellen can show up. He has 2 options of where to place a wreckage ship. So eventually what ends up happening is you're just going to have wreckage all around the raft to the point where it's just going to sink. It's bad news bears. Now my plan here is it's round 4, and we know round 5 the Krellen will activate where it currently is. No one's there to be attacked. It will move to the next place, which will be over here. It won't be able to attack anybody. It'll break or bust up another part of the raft, and on round 6 when we can actually hit it, it will be over here. So what I want to do is I want to position my Gearlocs here and here, but not here right now. I want to at least have 1 here and maybe leave 1 right where Gasket is to be ready, and then I'm going to put both of them right there, and we're going to just hammer on that Krellen the second that we're able to in position number 3. If that doesn't work out, we're going to have to run to the other side of the ship. The other thing that happens in round number 6, sorry. The other thing that happens in round number 6 is fatigue. So we're all going to start taking damage, and as you can see, we're much lower on the health spectrum than he is. It's true damage, so we can't use buff HP for that. Now, when I mentioned earlier that something different changes in terms of the rules of the battle mat in round number 5, I actually meant in the fatigue round. It's basically after round 5. So it means fatigue round and onwards. Basically what ends up happening in that situation is everybody's allowed to start running diagonal. That's when things get real crazy. That's why you can see these faint diagonal lines between the different orthogonal, more solid lines in between each of these circles, because once you get to round number 6, you can start moving diagonally, and that includes baddies as well as Gearlocs. There are some baddies within the game that have an icon with 2 feet on them, and that means essentially from round number 1 those baddies can move diagonal. So some of those baddies you'll see could be like a baddie number 20 or a baddie point total number 20, which is pretty nasty. They can move really quick and get into a lot of situations or get to you quicker than you might expect. But I just wanted to clear that up because I did mention something changes in round 5. It actually happens technically after round 5, so that would be the fatigue round, which is round 6. So going into round number 5, nothing changes here except the fact our goal is still to try to be productive, but we're having a hard time when 2 of the individuals we want to target are untargetable. So Duster will start us off here because we lost Nightshade, and honestly the only thing that makes sense to do at this particular point, seeing as we can't actually hit anything, is get into a better position for later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend my 3 decks with Duster to get myself over here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3 all the way over to this side, and now I could potentially, because I don't think I'm going to get the bones I need to get that innate +1 on Duster, and if I can try to later, I will. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to, this is where it gets hard because I have a double bone currently in my backup plan. If I spend one of those bones, I actually lose the double bone. It's pretty vicious that way. So just so you guys can see this visually, the double bone right now sits like this because it represents 2 spaces. If I want to use one bone, which is basically what I would be doing if I chose to use my gadget armor to move an extra space or do anything else really, then I actually lose my entire 2 bone. That's how nasty that is. So yes, the 2 bones are nice because they give you options that are higher up than you'd expect, but the bad side is if you decide to use them for half their value, they do disappear. You don't get to replace it with a single bone in the first slot for this particular example. So that's going to be it for Duster. Pretty straightforward. So we'll move on to Gasket now and see if we can maybe bolster up and maybe we can actually get an 8+1 on Gasket in this round. All right, so we're going to go for it. I really want to try to get this an 8+1. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll the Hydro Valve as well as 3 defense dice. So that's going to be a total of 4 decks, and we're going to be hoping we get that bone we need here. And then if we get to the 6th one, it says right there, upgrade to an 8+1, which would be a really cool ability. Let's go to the dice tray, cross our fingers. Best case, we also get some defense as well. So we'll see what happens. All right, here we go. Come on, give me 2 bones. That would be fantastic. Yes, I got them, and I got some sweet defense too. That's amazing. So we're going to slot these in, guys, and I'm going to show you what upgrading to an 8+1 is all about. That was a very successful roll, so we're going to slot in our defense dice, which will be handy for when we need to take attacks, which will likely come from that Krellen when it eventually comes around. We also have a bone which will get slotted in here, and we've gained technically our 6th bone on the Hydro die. That's so good. And we didn't have to spend any Hydro either, which is fantastic. So at this point now, what ends up happening is I can use my backup plan once per turn. I'm choosing it right now to go ahead and upgrade to an 8+1, so this entire row gets drained. Of course, the Hydro Valve will just go back, but all of the bones that are in here come out of my backup plan now and can just go back into the tray. And now we go back to the actual battle mat where our Gearloc chip is for Gasket. We're going to flip this thing over. So when we spend all 6 of our bones to upgrade to an 8+1, we take our Gearloc chip and we simply flip it over, and you're going to notice there's a whole bunch of stars on that side. We are going to be able to keep it on this an 8+1 side for the rest of this adventure, and that includes all the way up to the Tyrant, literally the entire adventure. And now we have gained access to Gasket's innate +1 ability called Steambot Pro. So let's go ahead and read what that is all about. So how Steambot Pro works is essentially the exact same as his regular innate ability of Steambot with a bonus. So normally, and I've been taking advantage of this every single time, Gasket starts with a Hydro Valve and a primary canister skills. And we've been using those dice and putting those canisters in the lock spaces we're supposed to. Skills are not exhausted when used on Gasket, we know that. And at the start of battle, Gasket may place defense dice in his active slot equal to half his defense stat, which is 4. So half of the defense stat of 4 is 2. So we can basically put 2 defense in his active slot. Now, what's really cool is when it's an innate +1, you get the same benefits as what I just described, but now Gasket can place defense in active slot equal to his defense stat. So we can actually go into a battle already beefed up with 4 defense from the get-go, which is huge, especially when we get into these later battles. So we're going to go on to the next baddie in line, which is the green one, which is the monkey. It's going to become untargetable again, and hopefully it doesn't go into hiding again, because that would really delay things. But we're going to go ahead, and it's a ranged baddie. So again, it's going to go after whatever's the weakest baddie out on the board right now based on its target. And his target has his arms down, as we already know. So we have a tie here between Gasket and Duster, so I can choose. I'm going to have it go ahead and attack Gasket. Gasket has defense dice to burn, so this is a perfect time to use them. So this monkey is going to be rolling not only his own defense die, but also an attack die, and we got to cross our fingers that we don't see any bones. All right, so we know that Gasket can handle this hit regardless. We just don't want to see bones. Oh, he did it again. Insane. And on top of it, actually added some defense. This is the best monkey we have ever fought. Easily. So the results from the monkey actually impact Gasket with no actual damage whatsoever because a bone was rolled instead. So we're going to go ahead and grab a untargetable die and drop it back on the monkey again, as we cannot hit it. Well, at least we know going to the 6th round we'll be able to hit the Krellen. So maybe it's kind of good that we only can focus on the Krellen. But that monkey, I tell you, it's incredible how often that bone's been rolled. And then it's also going to beef itself up with some defense to make things even more annoying at the very end when we try to take it down. So we have now finished that, and then we're going to go over to the Krellen. So the Krellen is now going to activate, and this will be fun. So the Krellen here, again, still untargetable. It's going to try to target a Gearloc that's sitting in one of these 2 locations. It cannot. It is now going to move to the opposite side of the raft over here. It's going to target these 2 locations. It's going to roll 1 attack die as denoted on the chip, and if it lands 1 damage, it's going to break apart the raft. Definitely did. So we take a wreckage token, and we're going to drop a wreckage token right there. So now we have 2 pieces of wreckage on the ship. Not doing so good. The ship is starting to fall apart on us. Now remember, guys, later on in other water battles, our ship gets restored back to full. We don't carry our wreckage further along in this particular one-shot attempt to go after the tyrant here. So don't worry about that. This wreckage doesn't stick with us. We just have to avoid getting 5 of them. We basically repair the raft thematically in between encounters. So now we're done activating all of that, and finally we can start round number 6, which we've been waiting for. Now this is where things get kind of ugly because time starts ticking away. Now the second we hit 6, we are all able to move diagonally, but not just that, we all are going to take damage. Now the type of damage that we take right now is very different than what we are used to. It's just generic damage that is undefendable and you cannot stop it. It's not considered regular damage, it's not considered true damage. Everybody in play takes a hit. So even individuals that have untargetable dice are still going to take a hit, including the Krellen, but also our Gearlocs are going to take hits as well. This is going to weaken everybody as it progresses us down. And one of the coolest factors is that annoying monkey with the defense die and untargetable is going to be removed at this point because it only had 1 health. So we basically outlasted that individual, which is great news because there's 1 less to deal with. So we'll pop out that initiative die as well. We'll remove all of the health that we took off from all of our different characters, and now we're going to begin this fatigue round, or round number 6, allowing diagonal movement if we need it, but the plan is going to be to meet the Krellen on the spot number 3 where we'll be heading next, and we're just going to hit that thing as hard as we possibly can. So let's start it off with Duster. So this is going to be pretty straightforward for Duster's turn. I'm going to have Duster move right here like this, and we are going to go ahead and also roll 1 defense die for Duster to put some defense up if we need it. Now, technically, we are not making an attack. We have no target, so we're not going to be rolling any attack dice in this. I don't need to use Blade Dip. I can't use Flint and Tinder, so I literally could only potentially move another spot if I wanted, but that wouldn't make much sense. So I'm going to stay put. I'm basically going to be burning a dex and not using it, as I can only roll 1 defense here. So we'll roll this and see how it goes. Got a bone. Look at that. So now we are up to a total of 3 bones on Duster, as she had the 2 bone from earlier and now an additional bone, but I did not get that defense that I wanted. And now we'll move on to Gasket. So Gasket's going to do the exact same thing. Going to move to this position right here. Going to get ready for the Krellen to come over on this side of things. This is going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. But really why I'm doing this, guys, strategy-wise, is the Krellen will show up here, and it does actually attack both of us when it comes out of the shadows, and it actually hits us for 1 damage each. So it's possible, based on the next fatigue round and the hit from the Krellen, that Duster may not survive this, but Gasket should, because Gasket has 3 defense on him currently. We've just activated Gasket. We've moved Gasket 1 dex worth right here. I still want to roll an additional defense die in order, and actually what I might do is I might go ahead and roll No, I think I will just roll 1 hydro die and 1 defense die to fill in that 1 empty spot that I have. I don't need to do anything else dex-wise, so I'll stop right there. So I'm just going to roll these 2, and we'll see what happens. Oh my gosh, I cannot roll anything with gasket besides bones. But I mean, hey, like bones are useful, so I'll take them. They could end up helping us out. And actually what I'll do is I'm going to spend 1 bone that I just got right now, and it's called Hotfix, and it says gasket adds or increases a defense die by 1. So I'm going to take one of my active defense dice that are 1 and flip it to 2. So now we actually have 2 two defense dice in the active area for gasket, so much more prepared for the battle to come with the Krellen. And I'm gonna go ahead here and shuffle my 1 bone down because I still have 1 remaining, and that's all I'm gonna do for gasket. Pretty straightforward. Now we'll move over to the Krellen. The Krellen is going to activate next, so we're going to go ahead and move this all the way to the end. The untargetable die is off of this thing because we're in the fatigue round. We can actually target this thing now. It's going to come over to this side, or first, just so you guys are aware, the first thing it does is try to find a Gearloc over here, and if there is none, then it's going to flip to the next position, which means it comes over here to the 3. It is going to find a Gearloc here, so it is going to attack. Now, both of our heroes currently are at the same health, but one thing that's really interesting about this particular one is it doesn't matter which one we're talking about, because this particular guy has 2 individuals in that target area in the middle of its chip, so it's actually going to attack both of us. So this is going to be really interesting, and we'll see who is going to survive this. So we are going to roll for each attack separately. That's right, we're going to roll 1 attack die for each. I'm not going to pull the dice tray into this because we're in the final rounds. I want to keep the action to the mat. So here we go. The first attack is going to go up against Gasket, who has 2 active, 2 defense dice. So hopefully he can hold off here. This one rolled right off camera and landed as a 1. So I can easily block that with one of my 2s. Tick that down to 1. Gasket takes no damage. And we're going to go over here to Duster. Now, if I even take a single point of damage, Duster will be removed because at the start of the next round, a fatigue will knock her out, and it'll be all up to Gasket to win it. So here we go. Oh, that's a big hit. So Duster is gone. Duster's been completely eliminated. So that is pretty crazy. So there goes 1 opportunity to win. So now we are right down to the wire. What looked to be a pretty straightaway win is going to become right down to a couple dice rolls here. So this is going to get very interesting. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reset for another round. We're each going to take a hit, and just like that, and 1 off Gasket. I literally have only 1 chance to pull this off. It literally comes down to 1 roll, and that roll's happening right now. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna activate Gasket because I can't last one more round. I'm gonna be in trouble. So here we go. We're going to be rolling all 3 of my attack dice for Gasket. Thank goodness that I have all of those available for me. So I'll be rolling all 3 of those, plus I have to roll a hydro die. And we really just need the 2 damage. So cross your fingers, guys. If we see too many bones here, this could really screw us at the very end. So here's hoping this pans out. Yes, we got it. Nice. So that is a defeat of the Krellen. We got way more than we needed. Blew it out of the water at the very end. Gasket deserves all the credit for this particular win. So this guy has been removed. Talk about winning by the skin of our teeth. Well, guys, we did it. We successfully completed the second choice encounter here, the Go for a Ride one, which is going to give us 1 progress point in addition to the progress point we would have got for being successful anyway. So we gained 2 off of that one. That's a huge jump, and we saved a full day, essentially. Plus, we're going to gain 2 training points, as denoted in the bottom right-hand corner, as well as gaining some loot. So let's go ahead and get all of our spoils set up and also log our progress. Now let's go ahead and get some training points assigned for Duster. The first thing I want to do is get some more decks for Duster. I noticed a lot during the last battle that Duster was basically strapped, trying to move to positions to be useful, and then by the time getting there, didn't have the enough decks available to roll a decent attack. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is a free upgrade because this doesn't require any training. I don't have to, well, essentially I use a training point, but I don't have to roll for anything. It's an automatic success. So we go up to 4 decks. Now I have 1 more training point to spend. I really do think it would be useful for us to bump up our defense. I would love to go after another skill, but I feel like every single time that I want to get Duster protected and try to roll 1 defensive die, sometimes it just lands on a bone. It's happened a few times during the last battle, and I'd really like the ability to have some active defense on Duster so that I'm not always relying on Gasket to be the sole tank for a particular situation, and Duster can be a little bit more flexible with movement and not be as scared to be in bad positions. So I'm going to go ahead and try to train defense. Now we get 2 rerolls on this. That's the good thing with training defense. This is the first time we train defense. That's the difference. And sorry, it's not 2 rerolls. It's a roll essentially based on your level currently. So 1 plus 0 is 1. So we're going to take 1 defensive die. I got to roll this, and as long as I don't land a bone, I'm successful. But the benefit with training defense is if you roll a bone and mess up, you get 1 more reroll attempt. That is not the case with attack. Attack, you just get 1 chance. If you fail, you got to spend your training point elsewhere. With defense, you get essentially 2 rolls to try to do it, and if it doesn't happen, then you have to spend your training point elsewhere. So here we go. We're going to roll with 1 die and see how it pans out. There we go. We got it. So 2 training points now spent for Duster, and she is definitely much more capable now all the way around in terms of her options, especially in her stat area up here. Now we're going to head over to Gasket and see if we can start flushing out his skill tree. One thing that is definitely worth noting, guys, when coming out of the last battle is that now, after going through a battle, any buff HP that I have left over that I didn't actually use, which I do have some on Gasket, I didn't have any left on Duster because Duster was completely eliminated, is removed at this point in time. So we're going to go ahead and remove all that buff HP. It didn't really get used up all that much, but that's because Gasket is such a tank in terms of defense already. The buff HP wasn't even necessary. So we really know we have lots of decks. We have a decent amount of health, decent attack, and decent defense. So we really can start focusing on maybe unlocking some of the skill tree here. So for Gasket's 2 training points, I really want to focus on this area right here, and this mode area is considered Derail. It's all about annihilating baddies and arranging the battlefield to your liking, and I really like the Blitz die. And what Blitz basically says is it will do an energy arc damage to baddies, which is really cool. It's instant, so you deal a number of damage to an adjacent unit, so that's orthogonally adjacent, and all units adjacent to that unit then take the number you rolled -1 damage and does not affect Gasket. So that's really cool. So basically there's a reverberating effect where essentially if you roll high enough on this die, you have to put into the count that essentially whoever's beside you or adjacent to you will definitely be taking whatever damage number you roll, so 1 or 2 in this case on this die. But if you happen to be lucky enough to land that 2, which I believe is on 2 sides of the die, the bonus is that you -1 off that total for the other baddies that are adjacent to the one you're targeting, and they take damage. And that's crazy because it could hit a lot of different baddies all piled into one area. And Gasket's really good at kind of attracting a whole bunch of baddies, just like what happened on the raft there. And being able to hit a bunch of them at once could be really fun. So Blitz is one that I definitely want. And we're going to branch out from Blitz and go all the way out to Blast, which is die number 4. So let me explain to you how this one works. Blast is also instant. You deal a number of damage to a non-adjacent unit. So my understanding with this particular one is essentially, as of the rules of the game, adjacency is orthogonal. So my understanding would be that I'd be able to blast somebody that's even on a diagonal angle because they're not adjacent to me. So that is also something that seems extremely useful. Now, one thing I want to clarify with this is whether or not it allows for kind of a ranged attack, because it basically says deal damage to a non-adjacent unit. So technically based on the rules, I'd assume that that would mean anything diagonal or anything further away. But I'm going to double check on that, but it sounds like a really good die to have and very useful one. So I'm going to spend my 2 training points to fill out that section, and now we've kind of got a little bit of everything going on here. The only thing we haven't really dived into too much is the directives, and I'd also like at some point to maybe grab the gut to kind of flush out the cut that we have, which basically when you cut someone and they start bleeding, you can use gut and it just hits them for even more damage. But I really like what I did there, and now Gasket has more dice options and has a ton of decks to roll, so we're all good there. Let's head over to the adventure map and get our progress checked in. We are progressing closer and closer to Nobulous. Look at this, going straight down through to here and then to here. We are 1 encounter success away from being able to take on Nobulous if we choose to. And I really like the fact that we've reached him with this many number of days still remaining. We currently are on day 5. We'll be moving into day 6 shortly, but we have 10 days to take him down. So we're doing a phenomenal job. The last thing we need to do at the very bottom of the encounter card is gain a loot for each of our Gearlocs. So the first loot card off the top for Duster is going to be a Descaler. This one says grant any Gearloc 2 buff HP. Otherwise, during a lockpick attempt, use this to open a lock of 4 or less without the use of action dice. That's actually really good. So if we happen to get any trove loot, which we may or may not, but at least worst case scenario, we get some buff HP, we could hold on to that and use it when we go into the tyrant encounter. So that's actually pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that loot. Going over to Gasket, who can really just hold loot, but I'll read this out anyway. Gasket got the Spider Silk Slave, or Slave. Oh my gosh, I can't pronounce that at all. It's not slave, that's for sure. Salav. I'm going to go with that. This says single use. Place 1 health chip on this card during recovery phase each day. This HP may be used to heal yourself. Discard when used. Oh, now that would be really handy to actually pass over to Duster. I can't actually use that for what it states on Gasket because Gasket doesn't use loot like a normal person. He is a robot. So this is going to be one that might be worth trading over to Duster because this could be really helpful. So with that said, that resolves all of the loot that we gained. Just so you guys are aware, we have 2 trove loot and 1 loot on Duster, and we have 3 regular loot on Gasket. So we currently aren't at our maximums at all, so nothing to discard there. We have finished this encounter, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide this one underneath our Tyrant card to represent we've got that 2 progress points done, and then we're going to move on. In terms of Duster's loot, I'm very happy keeping the gadget armor on her, keeping the water mask on her, and that Descaler that we got. And what I really want to think about now during this trading portion of the recovery phase is whether I want to grab something from Gasket. Gasket has a couple things here that could be really useful, and 2 of them are basically guarantees to help me out. One of them is, we haven't really seen it come to fruition yet. It might be one that Gasket keeps just to charge up that power converter, but these are the 2 that I'm really interested in. One is the Kelp, fully heal yourself if currently at 1 HP, otherwise heal for 2. So that's not bad. And then this one, the Spider Silk, says place 1 health chip on this card during the recovery phase each day. So really, we're going to run out of days for this one maybe to become useful, unless of course we lose against Nobulous a couple times. But it says this HP may be used to heal yourself, discard when used. So it almost seems like the Kelp one seems to be the one that would actually be more useful right away. It's kind of a tough thing. This one might be a discardable card. If I'd have gotten this really early on, this would have been fantastic. So I'm going to probably go with those 4 for Duster. That's going to kind of complete all of the trading that I want to do between them. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about any lock picking. We don't have any locks to pick, so we'll be skipping that. For individual options, we definitely need to rest and recover. Our guys are hurting badly. So first off, for Nightshade, or sorry, when we're resting and recovering with Duster, we can choose Duster or Nightshade to heal. I'm definitely going to choose Duster. So Duster's going to get 4 HP back to go back to full health, because we do not want to go into battle with nothing. We can't really. And then on top of that, I'm going to use the Flint and Tinder die and roll this to see if we can get our wonderful Nightshade back up to full health. So that extra health that I need. And I rolled a 3, so we got way more than enough to heal up Nightshade. So Nightshade's all the way back up just like that, ready to go. We'll put that over there. Can't use that unless it's in the recovery phase, so we're all set there. Now we're going to head over to Gasket. We'll likely be doing the exact same thing as we need to rest and recover. All right, so Gasket is definitely a hurting unit, so we're definitely going to go ahead and add 2 to him, so he's going to fully recover. He's got that innate +1, which is fantastic. We're going to love that later on. Really glad that I was able to get that when I did, and that's going to be it for the recovery phase. So now we're going to head into a new day and a new encounter. So we are indeed moving into day number 6. All right, here we go with our encounter for the day. It's Unsettling Origins. We're starving, unable to hunt for food for days due to a strange increased mech presence. We take 2 out and 4 more show up, but that's about to change. While scavenging for mushrooms, we hear the telltale whir and clank of hydraulic doors, the same doors found within our beloved council's chambers. The sound leads us to a clearing where mechs appear and vanish in a large underground opening, totally unaware of our presence. Finally, we have the element of surprise. Scratch that. The trip signal wire at our feet says differently. A siren rings out. Our number is up. All right, here we go. Our choices. We have 2 different land choices, and they're going to result in a battle no matter what we pick. The first one says shut off that siren, and we're going to be doing our baddie point total, and we're going to be including some mechs. We haven't actually seen mechs in the playthrough so far, so that's actually works out pretty good. So hopefully that will show you guys what the mechs are all about. Gearlocs have dex stat reduced by 1 for round 1. So in the very first round, we're basically 1 dex less. Good thing I bumped that up for Duster. That worked out pretty good, but I will lose 1 on Gasket that I'm used to having for the first round if we choose that one. Going to the second choice says ignore the siren. In other words, maybe we just enjoy the loud noise. And if we do, we have a baddie point total. We also add a number of mechs in equal to the party size. So in that particular case, it would just be 2, and we gain an extra progress point. So really in this particular situation, we don't need that extra progress point. So we could probably just stick with the top one and be just fine. There's no additional benefit that's really going to help us all that much by having additional progress beyond what we need. We only need 1, and we'll get that by being successful at the bottom. There is a successful thing here that happens. It's really cool. If we had more time, or we happen to need to go to another regular encounter instead of taking on the tyrant, if we happen to fail, we can, it says both choices, if successful, the party may find special encounter council labs, research and development, and place on top. So basically, if we're successful, we might get another encounter that kind of leads down another story arc, which is cool. Could help us flush out our characters, then go after Nobulous again. So here is a choice for you guys. Do we go after shutting off the siren, or do we ignore the siren? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. This one has been definitely a longer one, but it's because we did our very first battle, and I also implemented all the rules that I could fit into that one, so it went quite a bit longer than normal. But going forward, a lot of those rules explanations are going to disappear as we get towards the end here, unless of course there's some specific rules that will come out per the tyrant or the mechs, for instance, who we haven't seen. So there might be a few new things, but for the most part, we have the general sense and flow of how Undertow works. So hopefully this is useful for people that are new to the game, as well as people that are already playing and experienced Gearlocs. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.